Hello, everybody. How are we doing today? So, today I'm going to be speaking with Bruce of God Body Disconnect. He's one of my favorite dark ambient artists. I am happy to say, whether he's getting ready to be interviewed by me or not. I've really enjoyed his work since I heard his first album in, I think it was 2015. Right around the time that I started writing about music, Bruce started creating music as God Body Disconnect, Dark Ambient. As you will see from our conversation today, he's been making music before he started with Dark Ambient, but this is how I've got to know him. So he's released a number of albums now through Cryo since that debut, and all of them continue to be really nice releases. So I am really pleased to have a conversation with him here today. And without further ado, we'll go ahead and pull him into chat here. What's up, Bruce?
Hey, what's up, Michael? How you doing?
I'm doing pretty well today. Everybody watching, if there's any problem with audio or anything like that, just let me know ASAP, but I think we should be good to go here. So yeah, I'm really, as I said, I'm really excited to get to talk to you on here. I've really been enjoying your music over the years. It's not the same old dark ambient. There's something to your God Body Disconnect project that really sets you apart from the other artists.
Thank you.
On one level, obviously the narration that you do, which anybody that is fans of your project are going to be really excited to hear that this is your same voice in real life.
Oh yeah, I get that. Who is that? Like, who is that? Joe Pesci? Somebody said I like one like is that Jason Statham? I was like, what? Motherfucker's British. I was like, that doesn't even sound like me. But yes, it's my real voice.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, yeah, so I guess let's go ahead, and I like to get things started usually with a little bit of a background of what led you up to starting God Body Disconnect. What would have been some of your previous musical uh, experiences before that? You don't need to necessarily go into too much detail here at the beginning, but just kind
Uh,
of lay the groundwork.
yeah. When I was about 18, 19, I was in Dripping, which is a death metal band. We're not together anymore, but for some reason it's still going strong. All these years, one album we put out, and it's like it gets more hits than GBD on the Facebook. I swear to God, it's like I get more like likes every day. So I did that. We put out an album. Then I kind of took a break for about 15 years where you didn't hear from me anymore. Like I was quiet. I was jamming with my friends, but we were just making shit just for us, like little demos and things, and nothing to put out seriously. And then I moved out about an hour and a half away from where my friends were that where I jammed with. And it just became too much for them to come and visit, all the time. So at that time, I was only playing drums, so I didn't know how to play nothing else, and I always depended on somebody to, a guitarist or whatever, and do some help me out, make music. And when I was left alone like that, no one was coming out no more. I was like, shit, what the fuck am I gonna do? And I still had fire in me. I wanted to make music somehow, so I was like, you know what? Let me just get my shit together and try this on my own. So I got some speakers. We already had a keyboard, an old Korg Triton we had, that I had, and I got Logic Pro, got a computer, and I just set my shit up, and I just started just playing, anything that just came out, and out of me, and I don't know how it turned into dark ambient or ambient. It just did somehow. I don't know, because I'm not, I've said this before in other interviews. I was not aware that there was a scene or there was even something called dark ambient, before I wrote my first album. So.
Yeah, so when did you start working on your first album? Because I that is pretty interesting and sort of on a timeline level sort of fits, I think, how things went for me. So like, yeah, when did you start working on that?
Uh, I'd say around 2014, 2015, like that era. I think it was released. Drudge Portals was released in 2016, I believe. And um, yeah, so I started right around 2 years before that. I was just fucking around with things, and and I'm a perfectionist, and I always got to get shit right. So like, I just kept working on the same shit over and over and over until it sounded right to me. And and at that point, I had I think I had like two jams. I had the first two songs on Drudge Pearls, and I was like, you know what, this should. I don't know what this sounds like, but it sounds good, and I
Yeah,
think it sounds good enough maybe to be on a label, and at that point, before that, I was like, I don't, I didn't really had it in me to be in a label because I was off a label for 15 years already. I already did all that shit when I was 18, record label and studio and all that. I did all that shit. And I wasn't, I was kind of, you're away for 15 years from the public music scene. It's like, it's a little nerve wracking to jump back in. So I started searching Bandcamp. I just found it out of nowhere too. I didn't even have any albums bought on there yet, and I was trying to find something that sounded sort of like what I was doing, because I didn't know the genre, because that's and then I found Chamber, and I heard Council of Nine, I heard Atrium Carceri, a couple other projects at the time. I think Word Clock, and I was like, this sounds like, yeah, in the same kind of vein. Yeah, I'm talking. Yeah, I'm doing some kind of different things, but it sounds like a fit.
yeah,
And from that point, I was like, who runs this label? Let me check this dude out. So I do my research on him because I just don't want to just sign with anybody. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was like, at that point, I was like, I don't really care. I'll put it out myself, or I'll just keep it for myself and that kind of thing. Unless this is really something really good here. So I started researching Simon. I did all that, and I saw this guy's legit. And this is a legit label. This is professional. And I was like, what? Let me give it a shot. So I sent them the first two songs, and he wrote me back right away. He was like, "Oh, he's like, I like this stuff a lot." He's like, so you got something good going here. He said, "I want to hear a full album from you." And I was like, "All right." I was like, "Okay, good, cool." So I went back, to the studio and took a couple months and wrote the rest of the album. And you know, I I I sent it to him like a couple months later, and he was like, the first thing he said was, "Who's doing the vocals? Where's the sampling coming from? Is it samples? Because you don't want to get
what
copyright."
movies did you take this from?
Yeah, you don't want to
What
get
episode
copyright
of The
infringement.
Sopranos did you steal these vocals from?
Yeah, exactly. So I told him, "No, I'm doing the vocals." He's like, "Yeah, you are." I was like, "Yeah." He was like, "Okay." He's like, "Great." Like, I don't know, a few hours later, he comes back with the cover already. He drew the cover. I was like, "This is sick." I was like,
He's a
"All right, so
madman.
I was like, this looks fucking awesome." I was like, "Yeah, let's do this." He's like, "I want to put this out. I want to work with you." I'm like, "All right, yeah, all right, I'm down." And and that's it. That's how we took it from there.
Yeah, that's so cool. Yeah, so yeah, that is about well, I guess you were a little bit behind me on discovering the genre, but yeah, I find that so interesting. I remember you I think you told me about this or I read it in an interview or I don't know, something happened years ago where I think you told me like I didn't even know about dark ambient. I just wanted to write this album and it turns out that's what it was. um
Yeah, to me, dark ambient was like the intros to black metal songs.
yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like that's what it was. I was like, "Oh, this is what it is." Okay. I was like, I didn't understand it completely.
Yeah, it's
Um,
such a strange disconnect. Like, I don't, I mean, I feel the same way where, you listen to metal music and it's like, yeah, the intros to various albums sort of sound like this, but when it came to metal, I was always like, this is a cool atmosphere, but let's get the band going, you know what I mean?
yeah.
And And so, for whatever reason, I don't ever have that urge with dark ambient for it to move on. Like, we can just stay right here for as long as we need to.
Yep. Yep, that's what it is, a lot of people use it for relaxation, a lot of people use it, like, I hear guys who are, like, coders and shit, guys working on the computer all day, they just leave that shit on, and it just, it relaxes you, puts you in a different place,
Yeah,
that's kinda what I like about it, that you're creating worlds, and you're bringing people into, a different world, a different universe, let them experience something, take them away from their life for 2 hours or whatever,
yeah,
and,
yeah,
but yeah.
yeah. It's refreshing for me that I talk to so many people that are like, "Oh, I've been listening to this genre for like since like the 90s." And I'm like, "I didn't find it until 2013 and I feel like so out of place, you know what I mean? Because
Yeah,
everybody that I talk to is like, "Man, I've been listening to this like 3 decades and I'm like I'm still learning, you know what I mean?" But and you listen to, you were into heavy metal, death metal and all these, obviously dark things, and it's just so crazy that it never came across either of our radars until the mid 2010s, or 20 whatever you call them, the teens. It's like I should have found this back in like 1996, and it would have been the perfect time to find it back in 96, but it
yeah,
just didn't happen. So it's been, for me, it's been my goal, since right around the time that your first album released, to try to get the word out. And so we sort of started our careers in this realm at the same time, more or less, because, right as I started to get serious with writing reviews was when your debut dropped, and it just blew my mind. Like, everything that I heard, not that things sound the same, but they all fall within the same template. And then your album starts out with this narrative, and again, you sound like somebody out of The Sopranos, and it's like, dude, this is something else going on right now. And the whole, that whole first album just blew my mind from beginning to ending. And you have not let up since then. They stay
thank you.
being really interesting, and
That's a tough album, and I'll say it, that's a tough album to compete with for me.
yeah,
You
I
know,
could
because
imagine.
every time I write a new album, I listen to that, and I'm like, I listen to Dredge I'm like, "God damn, it's so fucking good." I'm like, "What the fuck?" Like, I can't am I gonna reach that level again? It's like, it's a tough album to compete with for me,
Yeah,
but I just gotta always think, listen, hey, you're never gonna repeat the same thing. You're never gonna capture that again. You capture something new, bring something new to the table, and that's kind of how I do it. But my first month or two of writing a new album, it's always based off of Dredge Portals. It's listening to it and like I gotta get that flavor again, and
yeah.
then I just give up. I'm like, hey, I'm not gonna get it.
Yeah, so when you said you started out with like two songs that got you going with this, did you already have your narration in either of those or both of those two songs, or did that come in later?
No, I had the narration already.
That's
I
cool.
did, but not like just the opening narration on the first track.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? I didn't obviously the rest of the album wasn't done yet, but yeah, I had the opening narration.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, I mean, was that sort of, were you, did you start with the ambient music and think I need to put words on this, or did you start with the words and think I need to build something around, you know what I mean, like which one, because there are clearly two different things that are coming together there, it's literally like a narration from the beginning of a film almost, and it really feels like a film, and then the music just fits into it. So do you remember which one of those things came to you first?
Uh, I'm not completely sure, but I think I had the music, at least part of the music done. You know what I mean? And then I was like, because it's not that it's avant-garde, but it's like it's a genre that like it's sometimes it needs a little like people got to read the description of an album to get a feel for it. You know what I mean? If
Yeah.
you don't understand certain things, you know what I mean. So I was like, I don't know. I kind of felt like doing something else with it. Putting a narration behind it, and obviously I'm a fan of like all the Robert De Niro and Al Pacino and all, all those kind of movies. And I was like, I just figured, let me do something like this. And it just started off with like, I don't know why I have an obsession with like hospital beeps. I just have an obsession with it, like being in the hospital, hearing these things, like it's just something that's there. So I was like, I started off with that, and I was like, hey, maybe I could talk during this. I was like, let me say something, and then I don't know.
Yeah.
I never knew I had a voice that I could talk like that. I don't know. I just figured I'd just go and try it.
So I think it would be appropriate because it's so integral to what you're doing in the music, and I think it would be cool if I just go ahead and we can just hang out here for a few minutes. Not for the whole track, but I just want to play a little bit of the first track off Dredge Portal's Rise of the Dormant Host, just to give people an idea of like what that was like when we first heard this album. So let's just check this out real quick and then we'll hop back in.
All right, cool.
Yes, I will post the link. Good idea.
Nobody ever expects to end up here. Not like this. But no matter how well planned out you think your life is, that all could change. Just like that. Everything went silent. I couldn't even hear myself breathe. I thought to myself, this must be it. I waited for some, bright light. Maybe something to come take me somewhere. Anything. 7 years later, I choose an eternity in hell over this. See, my body died right there on the spot. Right with the blast. But my mind stayed awake. And I'm forced to see and hear everyone living a life around me I once had. Now, I'm just wishing they pull that fucking plug already. Just so I could see what's next. See, the point of all this is, you never think it could happen to you.
All right, I think that's a sufficient preview of that track that can give people an idea of, people that might not be familiar with your music here really need to get into it because it's such a good project. And again, like I said, this is just it's really really different than things that are happening in other. That's the beginning of his dark ambient career that we just listened to. When I got the album to review, it's like, oh, new music, new music, new music. What the fuck is this? you know? like you don't like it's like, okay, here we go, another dark ambient album. Let's see what this sounds like, and then the narration starts and it's just like, oh my god, this is on another level. And because and that's why Simon asked, like, where did this come from? Because people have stuff like that sometimes, but they took it out of a movie. you know?
I was trying to make my own movie. That's really what I was trying to do. I was trying to make it as realistic as possible, as make the atmosphere as just as real as possible to me. And you say it sounds different, but you gotta look behind me what I got on my wall. So I got Heat on one end, and I got Cool Hand Luke. Cool Hand Luke. This the saying is the man and the motion picture that simply do not conform. That's me. I don't conform to nothing. That's just how it is. Even with dripping, we were putting hip hop samples, back in 2001 in death metal. Everybody's like, "What the fuck you guys doing?" And now it's like, "Oh, okay." Now everybody gets it. Back then, it was a little different, but I always like to kind of be in my own lane, kind of thing. That's just kind of how I always am with things. I don't know why.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I mean, that's why I was asking you which one came first, because like I could just as easily see you saying like, "Oh, I've got this cool idea for a story and I've got this narrative sort of voice that I could use for it." Because, like I get like a strong feeling of like the Goodfellas narrative going there. You know what I mean? Where it's like you've just got this voice and this story, and like you just hop into the thing, you know what I mean? And so like that's what I always thought, like did he just like think like I need to like have my voice on a record, and how will this best be facilitated? Or like, you could just as easily have sat down and been like, I want to make some chill music, and then like, oh yeah, I could put my voice on top of this.
That the latter. That's more what it was. It wasn't that like I think, oh, I got a voice, because like the guys that I'm around, with all day, and they all sound like me.
Yeah,
there's,
well,
there's
for
no there's
one,
no
it's nothing
difference.
new to you, yeah, and
Mm.
from conversing with you, in our conversation before we did the interview, I could tell you're a pretty humble guy, so I also don't expect that you're sitting there like, I've got this badass voice, I've got to do something with this.
Nah, not at all. Not at all. I don't. I kind of keep to myself, altogether. Even social media, I don't post much. You know what I mean? I'll post once on my. You're friends with me on my regular account. Like I don't accept friend requests from like people I don't know, or that don't. I don't know. I'm just kind of quiet. I keep to myself. So no, I'm not really a loudmouth guy that knows he's got a voice or something to talk to. I don't know. It just sounds normal to me.
Yeah. Well, I'll say it's nice to have that separation. If I had realized like how deep I was going to get into this thing, I would have made myself like a separate like personality account, you know what I mean? And then like had my regular stuff off to the side, cuz like when I have a bad day and go on social media, there's like 2,000 people that are experiencing my bad day, and it's like, oh, I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
Like, I can't just go shit post anymore.
Nah, man. Nah, man. I don't even, I just stay away from that shit. You know how long it takes me to write a GBD post? Like when I'm just posting something, and they're not planned. It's usually I'm in the car, or I just get this idea, and I'm like, I'm listening to one of my. It's usually when an album comes out, and I'm like listening to it, and I get an idea, and I'm like, oh, that's what that song is maybe about, Because all right, and let me write a post about it. I sit there for like a fucking hour, like just typing two sentences out, because I'm so afraid I'm gonna fuck up or say something wrong or not do them. So like it's a big deal for me. I to even be out in the public. Like I stay in the background. I like being in the background. I like being behind the scenes. That's just kind of my thing.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I think this is a nice genre for a person like you, because that is more the normal with dark ambient artists, where it's not like, it's much different than the metal scene. There's the front man, and then somebody else is trying to outdo the front man because he's not getting as laid as much as the front man, and he wants to, like,
yeah,
I'm gonna be
yeah,
the bass player that's the front man, fuck this vocalist. And
yeah.
so then he's trying to be the front man, whereas in dark ambient, it's usually a bunch of introverts that like, that's what I was telling somebody earlier today. Like a lot of guys that I talk to in these interviews, like, you guys don't put your face out there. You don't put, audio, video interviews out there. Like, when we do this sort of thing on my channel, like this is a lot of times the first time people ever really get in front of a camera, potentially even in their life, you know what I mean? So whereas with metal it's
Mhm.
like, all right, time to go do the thing, you know, and like, you know,
Yeah.
put leather up and whatever.
Leather up.
No, I've got
Uh,
80s metal in my head because I keep watching this guy's morning show, and we've been listening to Slayer and Testament, and I keep
Hell
making
yeah.
fun of Metallica, and
That was
like,
that's my early shit. That's what I got. I was maybe 12 years old. I think I bought Seasons in the Abyss at 12 years old, and I don't know. I was also into rap at the same time. I was
yeah,
like, I had a lot of, I got a lot of genres that I'm into. But yeah, no. When I first started this project, I thought to myself, I said, listen, all right, before you get in a label, and make sure if you're going to get in a label, you're going to be out there. People are going to see you. They're going to see your face. You've been quiet for 15 years. Everybody forgot about you. No one knows who you are no more.
yeah,
And it's like, not that I had some, I was some big thing anyway, but I was known in the death metal scene. And uh, I said, listen, you're not going to do this with a persona. You're not going to come out and try to be dark or try to do this. You're going to be yourself, and that's it. And that's what this project is about. It's myself. It's
yeah,
um, these are stories that I tell, but um, especially with the narration. But truth be told, they're my real thoughts. I'm not trying to make a Goodfellas, or I'm not trying to make another Heat. You know what I mean? That's not my intention. I'm not trying to entertain people in that way. I'm just trying to, make the music that I feel that gives me the tingles down my spine. And, um, I mean, when I get into the vocals, I don't know if you want to get into that whole process. It's a it's a different kind of process. I'll put it that way. I mean, if you want to get into that, I don't know if
yeah.
you had
Well,
something
no,
else
I
first.
really would absolutely love to hear about your production on like on the music level and on the vocal level. Yeah, I mean anything you want to say, and I can sort of lead you into it in ways if necessary. But I
No,
mean,
no, whatever
yeah.
you want to
So
do. I mean,
just if you
I'm
want to
good.
start talking about the vocals a little bit, yeah, let us know a little bit about how that process works for you. Especially now that luckily that's why I think it was a good idea to let people hear what it sounds like on the album, because it's just like like Cryo Chamber is cinematic dark ambient, and God Body Disconnect is right alongside Atrium Carceri and being like the epitome of that label, the cinematic dark ambient
Oh,
label. Like
that's a that's a that's a that.
You and Atrium Carceri are by far the two projects on that label that have that tag work the best for your project.
That's
So
some big shoes to fill right there.
well, I mean, for Simon, like
Simon's got
Simon
some big
goes about
shoes,
it in a
man.
different way too, though, because like you said, Simon's is a story. He is not as far as I know, he is not any central character to the story of Atrium Carceri, just like Sabled Sun is not Simon Heath. The story of Sabled Sun is some other random guy off in the future that's out wandering around, and Simon is writing full-on fiction when he does those two projects, whereas yours to some extent is probably fiction, but that it's reflecting your life. So yeah, however you want to go with that. But yeah, I mean, I have no doubt that you and Atrium Carceri and Sabled Sun too, those three projects are really the cinematic in Cryo Chamber.
Wow. That's thank you. Put me aside, put me alongside Simon. It's like, he's up for me, he's up here, you know what I'm saying? And production wise, music wise, just business wise, I'm very fond of him,
Yeah,
and I'm
same.
very loyal. I'm very, very loyal to him. Um, and I thought, I mean, well, put myself next to him is a big honor. Put it that way, Thank you. But a- as far as the vocals, I'll start with Dredge Portals because you know that one sounds more like a movie intro, you know.
Hmm.
And I think the way I did that was, I had some of the music down, and then I was playing around. I had some hospital. I don't know why it came into me. Like I said, I'm obsessed with hospital beeps, and I always have this thing with with death. It's just, I don't know why I'm constantly thinking uh about my own death. It's something that is on my mind, and not that it's a I fantasize about it, I want it to happen, but I can see what happens when I die, the people around me, and the funeral parlor or whatever like that. I kind of think of all these things, and I've been doing that for a lot of years, and I don't know why. It's just something that I do. So I mean, those vocals is obviously, right along with that, with death and dying and being in the hospital and going to someplace else. Um, Basically, what I did for the first album was I laid down the music and then laid down the scenery of the hospital itself. And then I was like, you know what? I feel like something could be said here. You know what I mean? Instead of just playing the hospital. And uh, I got really high. I smoked a bunch of weed, and I kind of just closed my eyes, and I sat in front of the microphone, and I don't know, just something came out of me. I just started talking, like I didn't have anything scripted, and then, and it didn't work out the first couple times, what I was saying, whatever it was, but I sometimes I piece things together, but I usually like to get one clean run of something, you know what I mean? Because it kind of keeps the same tone, the same kind of atmosphere, instead of just pasting and cutting together. It doesn't sound so good all the time. So I just sat in front of the microphone, just started talking and talking, and soon it was, you look at my watch, it's like, oh, it's fucking 2, 3 hours. I got material here. I stopped and I listened back, and I found something that I liked, and I just put it together in the music. At the time, I didn't realize that I was writing about myself, writing about my life, and there's metaphors in there. Obviously, I haven't been shot, so
Yeah.
but the shot, to me, the gunshot, that's like a shot of that's an anxiety attack right there.
Mm.
That's what it. Um, I understand it to be today. I didn't understand it back then what it was. I usually don't know what my albums are about while I'm writing them. I mean, it's kind of weird to say that, but I don't. I just write and just do, and I just once I hook on to something like that's something that sounds good. I'm like, okay, now I can begin the journey from here. Let's just write from here. And I usually write everything in one project file. And I like to just continue it until the end. And it's only until after I'm done where I get a little bit of an idea of what I've done here and what I've said, even. And that'll change even 3, 4 months after the album is finished. So it's great that there's a little bit of time between I'm finished with the album and then Simon's getting everything together. He's getting the artwork together. He's getting the booklet done. All this. It's a couple months in between, and that's good because after that 3, 4 months, my narrative of the album has changed completely. Usually it's like, okay, let's go with this. And he knows that about me now. That, like, don't take the first thing from him because it's gonna turn out differently, fucking 3 months from now. I've done it a few times. Um, but it really I realized Drudge Portals at the end when I was finished with it, and it came out and everything, that it mirrors my life, mirrors my inner experience. There's obviously there's metaphors in that album. I use a lot of metaphors in a lot of things, gunshots and whatnot. But um, that's what it was, and for the rest of the albums, I up until my recent one, the Dormancy. I usually use the microphone, a proper mic to do things like that. And it's the same thing. I usually get really high. Uh, I just close my eyes and sit and just start yapping away and see what comes out. And that's sort of what it is. Like I said, I don't have this planned thing where it's like I'm Stephen King or something. Where it's like I
Yeah.
got this whole like story built up. I wish I did. I just don't. I'm just going along with the journey, and I'm saying, okay, um, that sounds good to my ears. What I'm saying there, and an interesting thing about the vocals that I'll say is that when I listen back to them, it can't sound like it's me. I don't know how, if that you can understand that concept. It's a weird one, but I know it's me. I know I did it, obviously, but it can't sound like it's me. It's got to sound like something else, and it is something else, and it is a different side of me, a different voice inside that kind of doesn't talk, doesn't get its, doesn't get the light put on it, all the time. And it's something inside of me that's coming out. So I'm saying the things I'm saying my fears, I'm saying my, my how I feel about depression, all these things. And that's how it comes out. And that's that voice. It's the voice, that the little voice in your head that usually doesn't get to come out and talk. Um
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I know exactly what you mean. I'll just throw in here stupidly that I'm thinking about the little, The Shining, the little Danny's little voice that
yeah.
the little guy that lives in his mouth. I don't know, for whatever reason. I was just thinking. I
Well,
on a serious level, I understand everything you're saying. On a
if you
stupid
want me to
level,
be
yeah.
honest, if you want, I'll be honest about it all. Not that I'm the kid from The Shining, but there is some mental illness there, that I recently have they recently discovered with me, and that's I didn't know this up until a year and a half ago, when I was first diagnosed. I didn't know, exactly what was going on with me, and I realized that that voice that comes out, that's on recording, that's a voice along with that's a schizo voice. I
Mm,
was that's a schizophrenic voice. I was diagnosed with schizoaffective disorder, bipolar type, and OCD, about a year and a half ago. Um, and I was suffering for 10 years, at least, where I probably should have been diagnosed and should have been on medication, but I just white knuckled it through, everything. And I tried everything I fucking could to not have to go on medicine, to not, really look at it, face this thing, and look at it in the face and say, yeah, this is a problem here. Like, this is not normal behavior. These things shouldn't be happening to you. And I fucking smoked weed, I fucking CBD oil, fucking jogging, exercising, meditation, fucking therapy, all these fucking things. And then it just came to the point where it's like my head was just above, like the water was here, and it just couldn't take it anymore. And the therapist I was with at the time, he was like, listen, he's like, this is getting, this is I'm looking at you now. He said, I'm seeing something, a little bit different than what's been going on, for the past, I don't know how many years I've been seeing him. I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I've been telling you the same shit for a long time. I told him, I didn't know at the time, but I was having hallucinations. But I didn't know they were hallucinations. I'll be honest. I didn't know. I just thought they were, in a foggy world. It's depression. It's this. It's that. But I was having hallucinations, hearing things, seeing things, and I didn't know exactly what it was. And in the end, I ended up, he sent me to a psychiatrist, and psychiatrist looked at me. He goes, "You're displaying all the signs of schizophrenia," he says, "but you look all put together." He said, "You got a family, you got a wife, you got kids, you work." He said, "Usually people with schizophrenia," he says, "they just let themselves go." He's like, "That's just how it is." And I was like, "Okay." I was like, "Listen, there's something here, I mean, there's something here. I'm ready to admit it. There's something wrong here." And he kind of was like, "All right." He was like, "I just, we'll have another session. I'll look at you again." And um, he's like, "I can prescribe you medicine now if you want." And I was like, "No, I don't want no fucking medicine. I'm not taking no fucking medicine. No, no, no. I didn't want to get on it." About a week later, I started, things were getting bad for me. And my wife was like, listen, she's like, I'm calling a doctor. I'm gonna get you some fucking medicine, and I was like, all right, fine, I'm ready. All right, I'll take it. I'll take it. It's getting that bad. Because I was at that point, I was in full on psychosis. And, when you're in psychosis, you really don't know you're in psychosis. The world is a mishmash to you. And so I got the medicine, took the medicine, didn't really do anything for me. Um, Took it for about a week. And then one night I was sleeping in the bed. My wife, I don't know, maybe midnight, something like that. Not later than midnight, 3 a.m. It was late. Um, it just Everything started coming on me, voices, and just I anxiety, the worst anxiety I ever had in my life. And I felt like this. I don't feel safe, and I don't feel safe right now, and I don't feel safe for my wife either. You got to get me out of here. Get me to. Yeah, I'll go to the hospital now. That's it. It was something I dreaded. I didn't want to do. I did everything in my power not to get there, but I didn't. I went to the psych ward, and you know, they diagnosed me and whatever, got me on meds, and that's that story. And that's to link it back to the music. That's that voice. Now I realize it. That voice is the voice that has been coming out of me and coming on tape, coming on record. Um, it's sort of it is my voice, but it isn't my voice at the same time. You know what I mean? It's a
Yeah.
voice that maybe shouldn't have been there, and it just comes out, and for some reason it comes out in an entertaining manner, and on an album and whatnot. But
Yeah.
that's what that voice is. So uh, that's what I mean by when I said I have to have it where it doesn't feel like I did it, like I made this recording. Because if I listen back and I think it's me, it's like garbage. Goes right and delete. I delete the shit. I don't want it. I want to hear like I'm being told the story. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I kind of you know channel that voice to get on recording somehow. I don't you know um that's so I don't know where else to go with that. If you have any
Yeah. Well,
follow-ups with it,
I
I
mean,
mean,
I,
I
I
can.
think that's a really, I don't know how this fits for you or whatever I'm thinking, but I think this is a thing that is the case with a lot of really creative type people. And it's interesting how it all worked for you because, in on the one side it's like you went deep enough into this sort of psychosis that you were able to find this inner voice and you were able to harness the inner voice, and you also were able to keep your life stable enough that the whole world didn't crumble around you even when you got to the point of having these hallucinations and everything. You still were aware of the world around you enough to know, like, okay, I need to get help, I need to get better. And I think I think that's a really, whatever. I think it's a good story, and it's sort of sadness or craziness or whatever parts there might be of it that aren't, good. But a lot of people can't get the benefits out of it without sacrificing their entire progress of life to it, so I like you said you should have got help 10 years ago, and maybe you should have, but if you had, you probably wouldn't have even put this project together, and it wouldn't have taken the direction that it did. So for all the bad that's come out of it, there's clearly been some good that you've harnessed in there too. But, some of the greatest artists in history are just flat out lunatics, and
No,
a
yeah, you're
lot of
right.
them can't stop that, when they don't want to stop it. And that's really the main thing is I think that, you were willing to get help, because a lot of people would say like, oh, I'm going to lose that part of me, and they refuse to get help to find out whether that's true or not. So,
Nah,
I'm
I
glad to
don't.
hear that
Yeah,
you're doing well now.
yeah. I mean, I have my look. I say I have my good hours and bad hours, not good days and bad days, because yeah, I'm heavily medicated now. But I went to the psych hospital 2 times within 4 months, uh, and the last time I went to the psych hospital was, I think, in May, and that's or June, and that's when I wrote. When I came home, that's when I wrote the dormancy. Um, so yeah, I'm listen. I'm not off the wall like doing nutty shit. You know what I mean? I'm not in psychosis. The medicine keeps me out of it, but yeah, I'm full blown at this point. Because I waited so long. I waited
Yeah.
10 years to do. I'm full blown. There's no going back, and I struggle with that mentally, because it's like I don't like things that I cannot control, and this I cannot control, and
Yeah.
that's what gets me about it. It's like I can't control this. I can't put it back in the box. I can't turn the clock back no more. That's it. It's out. You're full blown now. You waited that long, and that's it. But you know, it's a double-edged sword. Do I feel that? Do I regret that I waited a long time? On one end, yeah, I regret that maybe the therapist that I was seeing didn't notice the signs, didn't see the things at the time, or I didn't know how to explain myself at the time. But then the other side of the coin is, listen, I know that I did everything in my power, to stay sane. Like I said, I did everything, exercise, this, that, XYZ. I know I gave it my all, and I still ended up here. So I know that this was the destiny that I was going to be at regardless. You know what I mean? So I can go to bed at night saying, I gave it everything. I gave it 100%, you know?
Yeah.
Um, and, that's all I can go with. But as far as getting help, you know, I do have fans that write me. It's not something I talk about all the time. I mean, this is a different. I figured this is a different venue here where I'll let it out. It's not something I boast about or anything. To be honest with you, I didn't even share this interview on my personal page, because I don't want certain family members or certain people that I know to watch it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because they don't know what's going on. I haven't told many people. It's kind of stays in a circle. And now I'm letting it out here because this is. I mean, it's connected to the music. Obviously, it's not just like something that's not connected to the music. It is the music. It's the whole fucking shebang. You know what I mean? That's where it is. The depression, all that shit, all the melancholic shit that I write. It's coming from here. But like I said, fans that write me, and they're struggling, some of them, and whoever's listening, I'm not here to preach to nobody. That's not my job. That's not what I do. But if you feel like you know you're in a place where you're in a bad place and you can't control something, it's better to get help, and try to get help. You know what I mean? Because, not to say you don't want to end up like me, like I'm in the worst case ever, but you know, maybe if I got help earlier, things might have been different. I might have been in a lesser place. So don't hold off. You know what I mean? Something don't seem right to you, get help. I'm trying to say, it's like, don't be a hero. I tried to be the hero. And
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, well, so Lee of Annihilus and Theologian just said, I appreciate you sharing this, and Johann of Desideri Marginus just said, quite a feat to stay creative in spite of it all. Health issues and depression is mostly flat out paralyzing. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. So,
sometimes it is. I'll be honest with you. I'm not gonna lie. It's like I don't write music all the time. You know what I'm saying? I only write. Sometimes I'll go for 2 months without writing something. You know what I'm saying? It's when it hits, it hits, and that's how I do it. But there's days where I'm in the fucking bed and I sit in the bed, for most of the fucking day in the darkness. You know what I'm
yeah.
saying? Because in the dark, I can't see nothing. You know what I mean? And then once I go on a light, maybe something, I'll start seeing something, and it gives me anxiety. And it's like I take the pill. It's like it became this whole big thing now. So it's like I'm still learning my way. You know what I mean? I'm
Hmm.
only in this a year and a half. I'm sure that I will, get a better handle on things, later on in a couple of years from now. You know what I mean? I'll get more used to my medicine, because the medicine makes me fucking tired as shit. It really does. Fucking
Yeah.
knocks you the fuck out. And sometimes I have insomnia. Sometimes I'm up all fucking night, but then I sleep all fucking day. It's like, it's a tricky fucking process, but I'm sure I'll get a handle on it better in a sometime. It's only a year and a half that I'm actually facing it head on, saying, "Oh, you got this," and it's like, okay,
Yeah.
now,
Yeah.
even though before 10 years I was experiencing all of this, it's a little bit, it's a lot different when it's like, when you got a tag on it now, you got a name to it. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? It changes fucking things for you, but
Yeah.
um,
Well, it makes it more serious, but I mean, I think it also takes away some of the chaos, which I would think is a good thing, because at least you understand what's happening now and you can, you have a way of saying, well, this is what I'm working with here, instead of saying, God, there's something going on in my head. Who knows what that is?
yeah, listen, I was given the cards are dealt, and you listen, you either fold up, like a suitcase, and or you just keep on going. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And me, I don't quit. I'm not a quitter. That's just something in me. I don't do. I'll keep on going with this. I'll keep fighting. I'll
Yeah,
keep on.
well, and to that note there, I didn't want to necessarily ask, but you already kind of answered, so I want to say I'm glad to hear that, you said you recently, after you came back out, you went ahead and wrote your next album. So I think that's really good news, you know what I mean? Because
Yeah,
as I said, that's one of the things that is a problem for people where it's not that they can't, it's that they don't want to find out if they can or can't. If I get help, if I get my head back in order, am I still going to be creative afterward? So for you to already have crossed that hurdle where you've already got help, then you're back home, then you write an album, and it's just as great as your old stuff. That's a good sign.
thank
So-
you. Um, yeah, no, it's well, losing my creativity. I mean, yeah, was that a thought that came in my head? Of course, but was it something that was going to stop me from getting help? No, because it was like at this point, it's like, listen, the shit you're doing, Bruce. I mean, it's bad. I couldn't. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, I'm afraid to take a shower. I was afraid to take a shower. I was hearing, the shower, hearing things, and a voice telling me in the shower to do this, clean this wall, and every day it will get worse and fucking worse. First it was clean the left wall and the right wall with the fucking squeegee. Then it was clean this wall. Then it was clean that. Then it was fucking turn the water as hot as you can and put your fucking face in it and fucking clean the wall. And it comes with the threat of, if you don't fucking do this, I'm gonna ruin your whole fucking world. And that's
yeah,
what the voice, and it's like, and it was getting bad. And I was just performing tasks just to fucking appease, the voice that was inside of me. And it was like, no, man, I don't give a fuck if I lose my creativity. I gotta get help. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying? Like, that's not even a question anymore. Fuck that.
yeah,
Fuck that. Give me
exactly.
something. And I realized when I got help and I got the medication that it actually quieted down a lot of these things. So it allowed, like, it kind of opened up space inside of my head to be a little more creative,
That's
even. So it was
awesome.
it was kind of something that worked out good. But yeah, no, man, I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna be one of these artists that go out there and say, oh, I'll lose my creativity. Fuck that. I'll stay being crazy. Stay being crazy. You'll end up with a gun in your fucking mouth. At the end of the day, is
Exactly.
that what you want? Put out an album? No, man. It's about your health, and that's what it was to me. Um, I think this is a good place to talk about the dormancy, if you want to, and how that was written when I came
Yeah,
out
please.
the second time. So, um, I didn't get my meds right the first time. It's a trial and error with this kind of shit. You know what I mean? They guinea pig you basically. Let's try this, let's try this, and
Yeah,
some of the things weren't working right. The first time I went in, and they knew what I had. But how to treat it was, that's a different ball game. And it's like I said, you're a guinea pig for a little bit, and things went sour for me a couple months later, where it was like, this is bad. I got to go back in. I can't be here. I was starting to slip into psychosis again. I was like, something's not right. And I went back in, and this was COVID. COVID, like heavy COVID. And so there's no visitors, there's no nothing. It's like you got to wear the mask inside the hospital. And they said in order for me to get in, I got to take the COVID test. You know what I mean? So I was fully vaccinated at that point, and I was like, listen, I'm fully vaxxed. I got my card here, and and they're like, okay, yeah, fine, let's take the rapid COVID test. And I tested clean or whatever. And I thought I was going to be put into general population, like with the other patients. There's not
Hmm.
much to do there. You just walk up and fucking down the hallways and shit, and there's whatever. But and you see your psychiatrist once a day, and there's like a couple group sessions you do, but whatever it is, you're around other people, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So, and you can talk about your experience, they talk about their experiences and whatnot. But the hospital told me it's not good enough, the rapid test. They want the real test that takes fucking 48 hours. So I was like, well, I can't stay home. I got to be put in, I need to be in a safe place right now. You got to take me in. So what they do is they took me in. They put me in a fucking isolation room. They call it the quiet room. So the quiet room is you can't see nothing out, you can't hear nothing out, and it's by yourself with a bed. That's
Yeah.
it. and, and a bathroom. That's it. So I'm already experiencing psychosis. That's why I'm coming in here, and you fucking isolate me at the same time for fucking 48 hours. What do you think my brain's doing at that fucking time? I can't hear nobody. Can't do nothing. I mean, I had thoughts of it's the door with it's a heavy door, but it's got heavy, heavy, thick glass, but they cover it so you can't see out. And I was thinking in my head, I was like, man, I'm gonna take my motherfucking head and just bash this fucking door because I want to get the fuck out of here. So I went even nuttier being in there, but was not a good experience.
Yeah.
And the dormancy is kind of, I would say, um, based on that experience a little bit, somewhat. Not knowingly based on it, but when I got out of the fucking hospital, I got out of whatever. I had the inspiration to write. You know what I mean, and that's kind of how it sounded to me. That being in that isolation room for that amount of time and being in there, stuck in there for 2 days, but uh, that's where the inspiration came from. And I think I say on this out, and also I used a fucking tape recorder this time, a cassette recorder, to do my vocals um, instead of using a microphone. I found it a lot easier. I found it a lot more. Um, I don't know. I could just didn't have to be up against on a mic like this kind of thing. I could a little be more free with it, and I just started fucking talking, and just shit just started coming out of me. And and I listened back, and I mean, the album is what it is. But these are real things. I'm not here to put on a show for nobody. Put it that way. Neither am I here to um, jump up with the banner, say, "Hey, hey, hey, I got fucking schizoaffective," or "Look at me." Nah, I'm not. I'm just trying to be honest about my shit. You know what I mean? Um, and this is what it is. This project is my baby. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
it's me, 100%. And if I can't be honest with the fans or be honest with myself with it, and there's no reason for me to do it anymore.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, well, I mean, I really appreciate you coming on here and opening up about these things because, I've had some people that have asked me behind the scenes over the last, 6 or 8 months or however long it's been, like, what's going on with Bruce, and it's like, I don't know, he's making an album, because I didn't realize how personal it was to you, so that's why I think it's really cool that you're letting us know because, people were asking me like, is there something going on with him? I'm like, nah, he's just making music. Like, this is what he does. He makes albums about this sort of stuff, and there you go. And then I talked to you to do the interview, and it's like, no, this is real. And I was like, holy shit, I didn't know that it was, I thought this was just like the Atrium Carceri thing, you know what I mean? Like, I just figured this was your narrative that you were presenting. So, it's really interesting to hear that it's, it's such a close thing to your life. And like you said, you don't really know what your albums are when you go into them. And that's the difference of building a story and presenting your inner spirit, demons, whatever it is, that you don't need to, when you're working in that other way, you don't need to know what you're doing. It's just gonna let itself out the way that it needs to come out. Whereas, somebody like Simon would need to sit down and say, okay, what's this gonna be? What's the beginning? What's the end? What am I here to tell? Whereas for you, you say, just turn on the tape recorder, and what happens, and you make sense of it later.
Yeah.
And it's
Even the music, I make sense of the music later. I don't go into it saying, "Oh, listen, I gotta be dark ambient this time. It's gotta be this. It has to be that." Just whatever comes out, comes out. And like when I get it, I gotta catch something. I gotta catch a hook. I'll write. I'll be honest. I'll write like fucking half of 3 albums before I jump. I get the real fucking album done. It's
yeah,
ridiculous. I'll write like, and I'm like, yeah, this is it. And then like, and then like a couple of weeks later, like, it's just kind of whack, bro. I'm like, I don't know about that. Like, let's move on from that. And I start something else, and then finally, once I catch a hook where it's like, oh, this is it, then I build off of it. I just continue and say, and it's a journey for me because I literally do it all in one session. It's a killer on the CPU because it's like I write all the songs in one fucking session. So it's like, god damn, it's like the computer's like fucking choking. It's like, what the fuck are you doing to me here? It's like you're putting fucking 8 songs in one fucking project session. But that's the way I have to do it because the first song follows into me, the second one and the third one, and I just keep going with it until I know this is the ending, and that's kind of how I do it.
yeah, that's really interesting. So, well, let's take that into a technical direction for a few moments then. So, what software are you assaulting in this manner?
Well, I use Logic. I use Logic Pro. I have not jumped up to Logic X. I know people are gonna say, "What the fuck is the matter with you, Bruce? That shit's been out for fucking years." I know. I'm using the same fucking iMac from 2011, and I don't give a fuck because the shit works fucking good, and I'm afraid of changing anything.
Yeah,
So I'm afraid of losing shit. So I'm using the same iMac. I'm using the same Logic 9. I know there's more better shit out there. I get it. I'm just afraid to fucking change shit over. I'm afraid to lose things. So I back up my shit all the time. It's backed up, but
yeah,
it's working, and I hope it
yeah.
doesn't
Well,
crash on me.
I don't create music personally, but I could totally see where you would feel that way. I mean, to me, it's like you've got your favorite, like for a guitar player, you have your favorite guitar, and then you find out, oh, they've come out with this new guitar that has this new kind of neck, and you can play solos way easier on it. And it's like, yeah, but I already play solos really well on this old neck. I don't really know if I'm going to be able to do the same thing on the new one. And that's like an analogy, but it still doesn't come anywhere close to just like, bam, here's a whole new software. Do everything different.
Yeah, yeah. I feel it. It's the same thing. It's like, I'm comfortable with it, and that's about it. Like I said, I use a couple guitar pedals. Got my keyboard, uh,
Yeah, Devin of
guitar. Just
Deviant just asked, have you bought any new gear lately, aside from your Logic?
um, no, no, I have not. I have
Yeah.
not.
Yeah, well, I mean, to me, that's cool. Like, there's some people that, they're like on Instagram, like every day, like, I got my new pedal, I got my new synth box, like all this stuff. And like, it does. And then I've seen other posts where it's like, you know what? I've got 150 pedals and I know how to use 75 of them, and I haven't picked up 3/4 of those in 3 years. And it's like,
Yeah,
so basically you have like $10,000 gathering dust in your closet. Cool.
pretty much. Yeah, it's like there's sometimes when you got more than what you need, and if whereas with me, if you put too much in front of me on my plate, I'll start to fiddle around with so many things, and I'll get lost in fiddling around and won't get down to actually writing a song. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, exactly. I
I
mean,
have like
for some people that's motivation. They learn the new thing, then they've got a new idea, then they make a cool new album based off the cool new equipment.
I
But
do that. I
yeah,
do that too sometimes.
I definitely see the merit in sticking with what you already know, because then it's all your creativity and it's not learning and experimenting, and it's like, okay, now it's time to sit down and do my thing, and it's like you're the maestro with your orchestra that you already know.
Yeah. I mean, I'll every once in a while I'll pick something up new. I will, and then it'll take me time to learn how to integrate it, whatever. But like I'm not picking up a million things all the time. I am a headphone fanatic, though. I'll say that.
Oh yeah.
I've had to cut myself off. Yeah, I have like I don't know, one, two, three, maybe six pairs of really good quality headphones, and I
All
just
right, so what do you think of these things? I've got
like AKGs.
I've got the classic, the K240.
AKG, right?
Yeah,
Is
yeah.
it?
Supposedly
Okay.
these are like really
You got an amp for them?
nah, I just plug them into my I just run them straight into my I run them into my computer speakers. I just plug them into the headphone input.
How they sound?
They sound pretty good. You know what? You ask if I have an amp, and I
Yeah,
used to take them on the subway with me, and they didn't get loud enough. Like they sound great, but it's way too quiet. But I
yeah.
can just crank up my computer speakers, and
They
I
work
guess
pretty
sort of my
okay.
computer speaker is like a sort of like a makeshift amp.
No, I mean, listen, it works for you. It works for you. But I'll tell you, from a technical standpoint, if you get an amp with it, it's going to sound a lot better. You're going to get a lot more drive out of them. More clarity. You're going to really feel these headphones sing. So I have a, I'm using a Burson amp. I don't know. I got it like a couple years ago. Shit was like Yeah, shit was like probably 1,500, 2 grand. So I'm like
Oh wow.
obsessed. Yeah, it's a nice amp. I also got a tube amp, the tube power amp. So I use
You got a tube amp for your headphones?
yeah,
No
yeah, and
shit.
speakers. Yeah, it works for speakers and the headphones. It does. Yeah, it's really nice. It takes like yeah, I'm really obsessed with like sound. I'm trying to get like the best sound I can all the time. I'm really obsessed with that. But my main writing headphones, what I usually use, they're Bose headphones. No, like and I know they're colored to sound and they're not flat. You know what I mean? But I know them so well that I know exactly where I have to be when I'm going to mix and stuff.
Yeah.
And then my best pair of headphones that I have are Audizies. What the fuck are they? Audizies X something. I forget. I don't know. It was like a 1,500 headphone or something like that. I forget the name of it. X
Damn.
something. So those sound, and they're open headphones. Those sound fucking phenomenal. When you want to listen, like the albums, like the best sounding albums that I think in this genre. Like I usually take like Sable Sun,
Yeah.
like 2147.
That's my favorite.
Like that.
2147.
Yeah, like that. Like there's one jam on there. I fucking forget the name of the jam, but it's like with the suit, exosuit, something like that.
Yeah, the exosuit. Yeah, I think it
That
is
is
called exosuit.
nicely, yeah, that's fucking nicely recorded. You listen to it on those fucking headphones, you'll fucking, I don't know, you're in heaven. So I usually, like to listen to good quality shit like that on there. But yeah, those are my final mixing headphones in the end of the day. But it is atmosphere is a big thing for me more than uh clarity. You know what I mean? I'd rather have atmosphere more than having a lot of clarity, and I you can't have both at the same time. Sometimes it's kind of hard, especially the way I do things, like technical wise. I know it's gonna sound ridiculous, but I'm stacking like four different reverbs like together, like on fucking each like track. It's like I get ridiculous with it. It's like I don't know, and I'll do shit like that. And it's hard to get like it takes a lot of work to get a clean, kind of clear recording. So I'll just focus more on getting an atmosphere, and I don't mean obviously not sounding like shit, at the same time, it's
Yeah.
got to be up to par, for Simon to be like, listen, okay, this is good, but I do use a lot of effects on things.
Yeah, well, I mean, with the sort of theme of a lot of your work, you know, it makes sense that it's sort of coming to you out of a haze. You know, everything is sort of behind a clouded mind, or from a, you know, yeah, that sort of, it sort of makes sense to me. Let me throw in a couple other things here that people have said in chat. Leah Vanihilus said, I used a Mac Mini from 2009 until it died right at the beginning of the pandemic. So I guess he's on the same level as you there.
Yeah.
Weaponized Eyes said, I love gear, but at the same time, it's more about the painting than the paint. Yeah. So, yeah, and I want to say, like, I'm, you know, I'm kind of like giggling at people that talk about how much money they're spending on hardware, but I'm not cracking on you guys. Like, I know some people really love their hardware and they put it to great use, but there are, you know, more than one way to get to the goal.
No, no, of course, of course. Listen, that was that point. I go through like phases where I'm just like, all right, maybe I want to buy some new gear now. And it'll be like that, and then I got to get the most expensive motherfucking thing out there. That's just the way it is with me.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, it's like, well, this one is like only $100 more. It was like, how much more better is it going to sound if it's $100 more? Fuck it, let me get it because it's $100 more. And that's just how I do it, you know. And then afterwards, I regret it. I'm like, oh fuck, I blew all that cash. Fuck.
That's
All
funny.
right.
Yeah, so
You know,
on that level, my headphones were $60.
I, hey, fuck it. You know, it
No.
works for you. You know
Yeah.
that's it. Like I said, I work with Bose headphones, with regular Bose headphones. They're not known to be studio headphones, but that's
Hmm.
really what I fucking write my music with, is with those Bose headphones, and I'm just used to them. You know, and I have a ton of great gear. You know, but I choose that over the ton of the great gear. You know, it's like, and I'll use the great gear only at the end of the process, like it's a specialized thing, and you know, whatever. But you know, I could probably do without it. You know what I mean? It's just a phase I went through and just bought some shit, you know, went nutty and whatever.
Yeah. Devin asks, do you use a lot of VSTs?
Um On and off, you know, I got a couple things that I'll use, but I'm usually using like a lot of, like, I have like a couple sounds that I'll use from Logic that are inboard that I just keep with them. I use a little Omnisphere, some stuff in Omnisphere, and I'm using a lot of just like the onboard sounds on my Korg, on my Korg Triton. It's been with me a long time. And I just use that, you know, and
What Korg is that
or
you said? The
Korg Triton.
Yeah, I'm gonna have a look at that here real quick. Oh yeah, that looks sweet. I love just going into the, I don't know how to use any of these things, but I just love going, like, when my brother goes to look at guitars, I just head straight over to the synthesizer section and find their Korgs,
Uh,
or Korgs or Moogs, and I just sit there and fuck around with the synth for like 45 minutes. Everybody walking by is like I'm like, for me, when I'm in the music store, I'm making noise music. Like, I'm just over there like and they're like, what the fuck is this guy doing? And I'm just like
yeah. Hey, if you're having a good time doing it, that's what it's all about,
I
you
don't
know.
listen to noise music, but when I have a synthesizer, I make noise music.
Well, especially when you're working with like an analog synth, like a Moog
Yeah.
or something like that. Like I to be honest with you, I got no patience for that. I got no
Yeah.
patience to sit from a fucking sine wave and fucking turn it into something. I got no patience for that. I don't. You know, it's just I mean, yeah, I'll design sounds, you know, in certain ways and things like that, but just to start from scratch, it's not productive for me.
Yeah,
You know
well,
what I
there's
mean?
so much spontaneity to it. Like, you never really know where it's gonna lead you when you get going with it. Whereas, like, I think, that's what it seems like you're saying, why you stick to the same stuff. Like, you want to hop in and know where you're headed. You know what I mean? You know, when you do
Yeah.
this, this is gonna happen. When you do that, that's gonna happen. And
And it's going to be the same way when I open the project again. You see, when you're working
exactly.
with like analog gear, like straight analog gear, like a Moog synth or like, you know, modular synth and shit like that, yeah, they can be fun and exciting. You know what I mean? They can be,
Yeah.
but not necessarily you're gonna get that same sound again next time you jump on with it, and it's not consistent, and that's the thing I don't care for about that. But listen, I'm knocking anybody. A lot of fucking guys use analog shit, and make phenomenal fucking albums, and
Oh, hell
good
yeah.
for them. You know what I mean? Good for them, man. They're a lot smarter than me. They're a lot fucking more technically inclined than I am, and that I have patience for. I just don't have patience. That's what it comes down to. It's like when I want to write something, because like I said, I don't write every fucking day. When I get the fucking feeling, I gotta jump on, and I gotta know I got A, B, C, D, E, F, G available to me. Let's go and fucking write something and play around with shit right off the bat. You know what I mean? And that's just how I gotta do it.
Yeah, so let's take your God Body Disconnect music production off into a totally different direction now. So tell us a little bit about Miles to Midnight.
Miles to Midnight. What a wonderful experience, and I got a wonderful album. I'll just say it's a great fucking album. It was a great time to work with Simon and Pear together. That started actually when I first started talking with Pear. Pear's a close friend of mine. I know he's a close friend of yours too.
Of Kammarheit and City's Last Broadcast,
Yes.
and Hypnagoga Press, just for anybody that doesn't know who we're talking about.
And like six other projects.
All amazing projects.
All amazing. Damn right. So how that one started was Cryo Chambers got Simon's got like a Facebook like private chat for like the artists to talk to. We bounce ideas off each other sometimes, and whatever, memes and jokes, and we talk about the Lovecraft shit, whatever. So Pear is in there, and he's like, I think he just came out with his first Hymnambule. Is that it? Did I get it fucking right?
Yeah.
That album is very. Yeah, I asked him the other fucking night. I was talking to him, and I was like, am I saying that right? He's like, well, we say it like this, but it's really like that. I'm like,
I pronounce it hymnambule, that AE, ip diphthong, the AE on the end. You can say that like 10 different ways.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, he was like, hey, whatever way works for you. That's good enough, he said. I was like, all right. So I think it was his first that first album that he dropped, and he was like in the chat room, he's like, hey, anybody want a download code to check out this album? And I was like, sure. And to be honest with you, I didn't know who the hell he was. I mean, I didn't know nothing about him.
Yeah.
I was new to the scene, new coming on the scene, and I didn't know of all the other people out there, and I didn't know he came out with an album fucking 2000 and whatever, early 2000s, and he had Kammarheit, and I didn't know any of that. So I got it. I listened to it, and then I figured, this guy gave me a free download code. I'll get back to him with some feedback. How I felt about it, and we just started talking from there, and it was like just an instant friendship started up. We just started moving on from music to personal shit and just shit. And it was like just an instant connection, and we started talking about jazz, and he was like, "Oh, he's like, I really like jazz." I'm like, "Yeah, me too, man." And he's like, we should do a jazz album. I'm like,
hell yeah.
Huh. All right. And then we started, kicking around the idea. And then once the idea became a little solidified in the head, just a little bit more, I mean, it wasn't like we didn't have anything completely solidified. It was just like, okay, you're going to do the drums, and, you'll also play some synths too. And I'm going to do, my synthesizers and this, and like, I'm going to use my tape, players and all that. And I was like, okay. And he's like, let's get Simon on this. Let's pass by him. So, we got Simon in the chat. I was like, Simon, what do you think about this? He's like, oh, that sounds fucking fantastic. He said, let's fucking go. But I don't think anybody really thought or knew that, like, that we were actually going to come up with something. You know what I mean? It was kind of like something like it was an idea, and it was like, yeah, I think we'll do this. But like, it wasn't solidified until Simon sent something. It was on like, I believe it's the last song on the album. He sent a Rhodes, like he was playing like a Rhodes piano on it, and he sent that, and then I think Pear did. He sent it to me, and I was like, all right, let me put this together. Let's put some drums on this. So I recorded the drums on it. I sent it back, and I think Pear did something else with it. I mean, I don't know. I forget the whole process of it. But that's when the moment, like Simon was like, "That sounds fucking fantastic." He's like, "This is a go." He's like, "We're ready for this." And
Oh
like
yeah.
that's when we got the confidence to fucking, fully go with it, because it's, it was something different at the time. It was like, I don't really know if like we could really pull this off. We might just say, I like jazz in my head and just sit down and I know what to fucking do. You know what I mean? And but it came solidified after like that. I put the drums on the one track and he's like, "This is it. That's fucking, let's go for it." And we just fucking finished that album, start to finish, mixed, mastered, artwork, titles, 2 months, the whole thing.
Wow.
We worked fucking, yeah, we just like went at it. It was just, it was a fantastic time. It was a magical summer. We did it, just everything with the stars were aligned. Everything fucking worked. There was not a fucking problem. The only thing that is always a problem, and it's even with God by Disney, and I can maybe say a lot of artists out there will say, is the hardest part of writing Miles to Midnight was the fucking song titles and the album title. It was the hardest part. We wrote the whole album, but then we spent like fucking like 2 weeks trying to figure out song titles. I'm like, how about this and how about that? It's like, no, and that's usually what happens with God by Disconnect too. Like, I don't know the fucking song titles. It takes a long time.
Yeah, well, there's a whimsical value to a couple of these song titles. Like, I get a laugh every time. Like, track 6 is, "Sorry, sir, you're in the wrong room."
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know who came up with it, but to me that just seemed like, I don't know. It just, not like that it's funny, but it just seemed like you guys really were having fun with those track titles for that.
Yeah, we did. It was hard to come up with them. It was like, I would come up with, and then it was like, then we had to come up with like, storyline and this and that. But that was the hardest part about it. The music was the easiest part for some reason. It's just like we all just fit together like a glove, and Simon is like, that's when I mean, I always knew Simon was a great player, but like that's like when I really got to see him work and how fast he works and how efficient he works and how he can just turn something into, I don't know. And I was like, this guy is like on another fucking level here. You know what I mean? And then I saw what Pear can do with his tape machines and all this fucking shit. And I was like, these guys are like, I was just happy just to fucking
You're
play with
working
them.
with
Like,
wizards.
yeah, I'm like, what the fuck am I doing here? Like, I'm just happy to play with these guys. I don't know what the fuck they think about me, but I was like, I'm not on their fucking level. That's what that's what I was thinking in my head.
That's so cool, man. Yeah, well, I mean, I could imagine feeling that way, because yeah, I mean, I've thought that many times with Simon, where it's just like, how is there not, like, it's like he has like 15 amazing dark ambient musicians locked inside his studio. And he doesn't tell anybody that they exist.
Yeah.
He just
His
opens the
nickname
door.
is Spider Fingers. That's his nickname. Is Spider Fingers. So I was like, all right, Spider Fingers, because like you'd send him something, like right back.
Yeah.
It's like, damn. It's like, how'd you do that, bro? It was like, come on.
Yeah. Well, no, you guys are gonna have to rename him Tentacle Fingers, aren't you?
Yeah.
I'm joking, but
That's
no, I'm wearing the Cthulhu shirt on right now, so.
Yep. Nice.
Yeah, no, but that album is so great. I have it on vinyl, thankfully, and I really love listening to it. It's just like, and that's another thing. I'm glad Simon started doing vinyl, and it's never gonna happen. I know the reasons, technical reasons, but Onyx needs vinyl. Like, Onyx is like my favorite dark ambient album ever. Like,
yeah,
that's why, you are like, I could see how you would feel, because you are honestly so lucky, from my perspective at least, to be able to work with those two gentlemen on an album, because like, Onyx was those two and Robert Kozletsky of Apocryphos, and like, holy shit, like the music that Simon and Pear make when they come together is just magic. So for you two guys to hop in on that and put your flavor into the mix of those two wizards working together is like, it's pretty badass, you know,
Listen,
and
I think it all the time. You're right. I say it all the time. I'm just happy to be on the fucking label. I
yeah,
mean, you know what I mean? Because everybody on the label, I mean, no joke. I mean, it's top par. You know what I'm saying? These guys are fucking good. And like I always think to myself, like, how the fuck am I on this fucking label? You know, I was like, what the fuck is going? You know, it's like because these guys are fucking really good. I'm just, you know, I'm just happy to be part of it. You know what I'm saying? And then to get to work with them too afterwards was like, wow.
yeah,
You know, it was, you know, something special, you know. But
yeah,
like I said, yeah, I'm just happy to make music and be on a label and put shit out and have more than two people listen to it because that's really my thing in my head is when I write an album, two of my friends are gonna listen to it and they're not gonna understand it, but at least they'll listen to it, and that's
yeah.
good enough for me, and anything else other than that is icing on the cake.
Yeah, well, that's definitely not a problem. There's certainly quite a number of ears that have fallen on your music by this point. So, you know, I think there's something to be said about you just like, you didn't come at this saying like, "Oh, I love dark ambient. I'm going to make the best dark ambient album I can." You just sat down and said, "I'm making music that's in my head that needs to come out of my head." And then you're like, "Oh, cool, there's a genre that already does this." You know what I mean? Where like, you know, that wouldn't be like if I ever write an album, I would be trying to make a dark ambient album. I have specific dark ambient artists that I would want to sound like, and you know, at the end of the day, I'd be a Northont copycat. So I would happily be a Northont copycat. And
Yeah,
but
that
there,
that that
you know,
and I'll tell you something about it, and I'll tell you something about North Horn. When I first started Dark Ant, when I first started, making stuff, it was like, my stuff was very active, a lot of sound effects, this and that. So, and his stuff, it's not, it's more, kind of dreamlike and more open ended and ambient, put it that
yeah,
way,
yeah,
So, and when I was listening to it, I'm like, I didn't have my ears weren't developed yet to appreciate that until, a few years ago. I'm like, damn, I fucking slept on this fucking project. This fucking shit's amazing. You know what I mean? And I'm like,
yeah,
holy shit. But when I first started out, I was like, no, it has to be every fucking, cause everything's got to fucking keep my attention. You know what I mean? It's
mm-hmm.
hard to get into dark ambient. It really is. I mean, a lot of people don't have patience for it. They sit there like, sounds like the same fucking sound over and over and over and over and over. And it's like,
When's the band
yeah,
start playing?
yeah, it's like, I mean, to a point, I mean, they have a point sometimes. You know what I mean? It is repetitive, but that's part of the magnetism of it. You know what I mean? And like I said, I didn't fully appreciate projects like North Hall in the beginning, but now it's like I look, I'm like, this guy's fucking whoa. It's like, way beyond anything I could fucking do. And it's like this really fucking good. And I started to appreciate more projects, just like at the beginning, you start with fucking metal, you start with fucking Metallica and Slayer, right?
Yeah,
And I remember this. My friend showed me Dying Fetus for the first time. It's a pretty fucking provocative fucking name for a
yeah,
band, Dying Fetus.
yeah,
He showed me it, and it was like, and I never heard nothing like that before. I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like, no, I don't want to hear this shit. The fuck out of the vault. No, get this fucking off, man. I was like, this is garbage. 3 weeks later, I fucking had every album made by Dying Fetus. You know what I mean?
nice.
So it's like it's the way it fucking works. Like I said, you start to develop and appreciate things more, and so you gotta have an open mind, and I learned that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, going just a comment that you just made me think of that I wanted to mention earlier in the conversation. I was in like 1995, I was buying Tupac albums and Pantera albums in the same week, so
hey, but yeah, ain't nothing wrong with that. That's me. I'll be honest with you. I probably got more rap in my collection than fucking metal or anything else. You
yeah.
know what I mean? I've been in hip hop since I'm fucking probably 8 years old. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? I can
the
I can
first,
tell
the
you that
first,
much.
well, the first CDs that I bought, like when I was like really fucking young, was like Vanilla Ice and MC Hammer. Like, So, but like, no, like my friend down
Listen,
the
everybody
street,
bought that shit. No
yeah,
matter what anybody fucking tells you, no, don't need to that fucking poser shit. Every motherfucker had the Vanilla Ice album. I don't give a fuck what you say. And everybody was watching MC Hammer with the big fucking pants, running around in a parachuting away. Everybody was, and there's nothing wrong with that.
yeah.
You know?
But no, but my friend my friend down the street got Snoop Dogg's Doggy Style, and we were like,
Yeah.
we shouldn't
When
be
that shit
listening
hit.
to music like this.
That shit hit, yeah. Yeah, that's a
Oh
good
my
album
god.
right
So
there.
yeah, I've been I fell in love with gangster rap when I was like 9 years old.
Yeah. Yep.
And yeah, I still listen to rap to this day, like a lot. Like I listen to it
Yeah.
like
Nothing wrong with that.
probably still like 50% of what I listen to is rap music. So yeah. Um yeah, but yeah, so that's really cool though that I that's it's cool that you got the drums into a dark ambient album. And I mean it's dark jazz, but it's also dark ambient. Like it's very much still a dark ambient release. It very much fits on the Cryo Chamber label. Back to Miles to Midnight I'm talking about for people that aren't following my hopping around with shit here.
Listen, I hop around like fucking crazy. I probably, don't worry about it. We're good.
But yeah, I mean it fits so nicely, and it's to me, like there's certain albums where it's like I could listen to it anywhere, but like North On, for instance, it doesn't have to be on vinyl. That can be digital, it can be CD, it can be vinyl, whatever I pick up and throw on works. But like when I hear jazz music, I need to have a record in my hand to place on the turntable. Like
Mm-hmm.
I need my jazz to be on vinyl. Like I don't know what it is. It's just something in my head like this has to happen. So that's pretty badass that you
Yeah, it
guys
fits
put
the
it
mood. Yeah.
together, got it, it became a Cryo Chamber release, it got its vinyl release, like it's a really fucking sweet album.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you. I hope we get to do another one soon again.
Yeah, me
It's
too.
been a couple years. But yeah, that I'm very proud of that album. Yeah, I am. It's like it came together with no problems whatsoever. Like it was really just fucking smooth. And what's interesting about it is that if you take Pear, me, and Simon, we all have distinct voices. You know what I mean? Like if
Hmm.
you put on any three of us, you could say, "Oh, that's fucking Atrium, Carceri. That's fucking Pear. That's Bruce." You knew it right off the bat. And with this album is you can't tell what the fuck who's playing what because you think that Simon's playing piano on some of the things, but it's actually me. And if you think it's Pear's doing something, it's actually Simon. You know what I mean? Everybody, we
Yeah.
all like kind of opened up and kind of took on different roles that we normally wouldn't have done. You know what I mean? And we started playing different things, and it all sounds like it's done by one group or one person kind of put together. It doesn't sound, and that's when collabs work the best. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
I hate a collab where it's like, oh well, that sounds like this guy and that's this guy. It's like, no, you're not supposed to know it fucking sounds like that guy and that guy because if they work together properly, it's supposed to sound like one fucking unit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Maybe you could tell a few like nuances if you're really into the band. You can tell, and that's cool, but it shouldn't be a drastic difference where it's like this guy and this guy and like that's not a good album. You know what I mean? In my opinion, I think a good album is where everybody comes together and everybody's got to make compromise. Everybody's got to bend sometimes and say, all right, I have to fit in here and fit in there and fit in that pocket. And that's just that's the way it. That was a good example of it. Put it that way. That collaboration.
Yeah, so I mean, we started out with saying you do the vocal narratives for your albums. Then we talked about you were the drummer for in the past you've done drums for years. That's what you'd been known for the majority of your musical career. And then you just mentioned there that some of you thought that was somebody else playing piano, that was actually me. So you also have guitar on your God Body Disconnect albums, don't you? Or no?
Yeah, yeah.
So you also play guitar?
I'm not the best player.
Well, that's an interesting thing with Dark
I'm
Ambient. You
not no
don't necessarily
Northumbrian.
have to be a guitar player to use a guitar
Yeah.
very well on a Dark Ambient release.
I'll use I'll use guitar, and I'll sample my guitar a lot of time, and then play it on MIDI, and sometimes I'll use sample guitars. I use a lot of different things. Depends on my patience level on the day, and how much work I want to do on something. That's what it is. But yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And to that, it's just totally random thing I just thought here. I don't know if you or anybody else here listens to Grimes, but I remember she was working on an album, and she's like, I just needed to put guitar in this, and so like she just like picks up guitar and throws some guitar in there, and she's like, all right, I got the guitar in, and it's like that girl doesn't know how to play guitar, but it sounds great on the album.
Yeah, whatever
So,
works.
yeah. Yeah, so I think we'll probably be getting close to wrapping things up here. I'm trying to remember. I'm sure I know I'm gonna be like, ah, shit, I meant to ask him this, but
You can ask away. I got a lot in this head.
yeah. Oh yeah, well no, I wanted to, one thing I wanted to touch on was a bit more about where you grew up, because you told me some interesting things in our private conversation before we got, a couple weeks ago when we talked about like the area that you grew up in. I don't know if there's any of that you would want to throw into this conversation or not, but just, because like
I grew up in North Jersey. If anybody's uh the fuck the word is, anybody is familiar with the Sopranos, the intro of the Sopranos, that's sort of that's my area, right there. He goes all through North Jersey. It hits like industrial districts, and that's where I worked for many years. I've been working the dock since I'm about 14 years old, in trucking and warehousing. And yeah, the show is that show is I mean, it gets dramatic at sometimes, at certain points, but to an extent, it's legit. It's real.
that's
That's
awesome.
that's North Jersey for you. That's it's legit. Yeah, North Jersey runs like that. So, and I think North Jersey has it's a little that show put it on the map, before people didn't really realize it. Everybody's like, oh, New York this, New York that, but nah, Jersey's got you know Jersey's got some things on lockdown too. um but it's a legit show. I like that show. Everybody here fucking loves it, because it's like something that we grew up with. You know what I mean? It's like, oh yeah, I know that fucking area. I know this, I know that, and plus, the business I was in, and trucking and warehousing for so many years. It's a family business, and it's kind of in my blood. So that kind of shit, you run into that kind of stuff sometimes, that went on when that go on in the show. Yeah, there is the sanitation department. Yeah. It's real. Yeah, it's not just a show. Yeah, warehousing and trucking and stuff. It's real.
Yeah, well, when I was when I went to Rome, and I took a trip down to Naples, and I was in Rome with a field school for archaeology, and so like, I was there like in a school setting more or less, even though we were allowed to do whatever the hell we wanted. Like I was 30 years old when I was there. I could do whatever the fuck I wanted to do. But me and a couple other people went down to Naples, and we called up our director of our program, like, hey, where's a good place to go get some lunch? And he's like, what the fuck are you guys doing in Naples? And we're like, it's Naples. We came here to see a bunch of cool shit. Like, we're gonna go to the museum. We're gonna get some cannolis. Like, we're in Naples. What? And he's like, that city is dangerous. You need to go get back in the subway, you need to get on a train, and you need to come back here. And we're like, what are you talking about, man? And we went out and started walking around, and like all the shops were closed up, and like the only people that we could find in the city were like African immigrants. Like seriously, like I did not see an Italian in Naples. I didn't see one. And the like every single street corner had the trash, like 10-foot high mountains of garbage, because the mafia ran the garbage disposal of the entire city, and they were at odds with the government, and they basically gave the government the middle finger and said, we're not picking up trash until you do what we tell you. And they had not picked up trash for several weeks, and the whole city looked and smelled like a mountain of garbage, and all Italians in the city were like, fuck this, I'm out of here. And we go into the museum.
But they ain't speaking up.
No.
It gets really emotional. They say, I'm getting out of here, but I ain't speaking up. Yes.
Yeah, so that was my first encounter with the city, where it was like, oh no, they're real and they mean business, and this is what happens when you don't do what they tell you. Not on like a, I'm gonna come out in the street and do something level, like on a city-wide level.
Yeah. No, I mean, listen, there's bad areas in North Jersey, real bad areas, but everything's under control. You know what I mean? Everything is kind of on lockdown. It's on a system. It's run. Politics is run. Unions. Everything is uh, like, for example, I'll say when they were rioting, like what we were doing some riots last year, right after Floyd, right, what was his name, George Floyd,
Yeah.
right? They were doing a lot of riots and shit. No riots in North Jersey.
Yeah.
Nope. Nuh-uh. That ain't happening because those areas are controlled. They won't let that shit happen. So it's like, that's, and it was happening in New York, and everybody's like, oh, New York, 5 families in New York, everything's under control. Nah, North Jersey, it's a different fucking animal. You know what I mean? It's everything. Yeah, there's certain control areas, and everybody knows where to go, what not to go, and what not to say and what to say, and that's it. You kind of know,
Yeah, well, I live right outside of Baltimore, and so we have The Wire here. That everybody, they know you guys for The Sopranos. They know us for The Wire. So
hey, The Wire, that's a good show, bro.
Yeah, The Wire is really good.
Man. We got that shit too. We got blood, not Crips, not a lot of Crips. We got a lot of Bloods.
Yeah.
Right in my next town out, over. We got a lot of Bloods. There's a lot of gang activity. And there's a lot of stuff. But hey, everybody kind of lives. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to make it out like this is like the worst place ever to go to. Like you're scared and this and that. No, I mean there's some really fucking wealthy areas in fucking North Jersey.
Yeah, it's the same thing with Baltimore.
Yeah, you got in and out. You know what I mean? But
Yeah. So a couple things from chat here that
yeah, I can't see the chat. I went on the thing. I'm an idiot with this shit. I'm trying to. But the last thing what the fuck? I had something. Someone said, "Great opening of an album," and that's it. Oh, oh, he said that. Oh, thank you.
Oh yeah. Yeah, Johan said that a while back.
Yeah, that's a late one. I got that. That's the last thing I got. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so Devin said here, Run DMC is the best when we were talking about rap. And then Lee from Theologian said a couple of different things. He said, I got really high while watching this. Cool. And and now you jerks have me getting my studio set up again. Hell yeah, Lee, sounds good. Write another fucking Theologian album. Great shit, man. And then he also said, I'm from Rockland County. The Sopranos like to go to see a psychic in my town. And let's see. I think Donbot. I guess Donbot probably came to this from a totally different angle, because I've been talking about like Hinduism and other totally unrelated to dark ambient things on this channel recently. So Donbot asked, what is the purpose of ambient sound music, and why is this music different from other music? That's like a super basic question, but maybe you'd be interested in just saying whatever you think about the matter. What is ambient music to you, and why is it different from other music?
That's a tough question for me, because I kind of go on the if I gotta be honest with myself, I'm kind of on the edges. I push the edge of everything.
Yeah.
Ambient music.
Yeah, well,
answer that one.
Yeah, so I'll start with what I think, and you can add on or not. So I mean, to me, like, ambient in its most basic sense, to me, feels like it should have field recordings in it. To me, like, the most like straightforward dark ambient is something like Northon, because there's like an almost 50-50 combination between nature and synthesizers or guitar that he feeds through synth or whatever. But to me, ambient has to have field recordings in it, and that's on a just strictly ambient level. But then you start to bring new age into ambient, and then it gets like pretty and synthy in a lot of ways, and then you bring dark into ambient, and then you get into the more, horror soundtrack synth stuff, and more like brooding things. And then like with what God Body Disconnect does, then you've got cinematic dark ambient, and then that starts to have more of a feel of like movie soundtrack kind of stuff. And again, this is a very basic way, like people would be like, don't compare my shit to a fucking movie soundtrack, but there is a comparison to be made there. And it's not even necessarily so much like a soundtrack to a movie, where it's a replacement for a movie in a lot of ways. And like that's why, like, I don't say, like, when I mentioned Goodfellas earlier, like, I don't mean that to say like, oh, it sounds like you ripped off Goodfellas. I mean to say, like, your shit makes me feel like I just started watching Goodfellas. Like, anything could happen. There's top-notch narrative going here. It's just like, I say that as like a badge of honor to compare it to Goodfellas.
Ah,
Not
thank you. Listen,
you know
I
what I
don't
mean?
listen. I don't get that. When you make music and you decide to step out into the public arena and share your music, you know what I mean? You got to take what comes with it. You know what I mean? I mean, I get some fucking. I don't have a YouTube account. I told you that before. I don't know why. I'm just paranoid about a lot of fucking shit. I don't have a YouTube account, but like, once in a while I'll check on, see some comments, and there'll be some fucking stupid comments or mean comments sometimes, and there's a lot of good comments. So you gotta take the good with the bad. I do what I do, and I do it for me, and I put the music out, and I'm just happy that there's people that even want to take a listen to it. You know what I mean? I'm just humbled in that way. Just listen to my music. I'm not upset you compare it to a fucking cinematic. I mean, a soundtrack. Are you fucking kidding me? That's an honor to be considered next to a soundtrack. A soundtrack is fucking from a movie. It's fucking Hollywood. You're talking about millions of dollars right there. You're telling me my music
Exactly.
is almost like that? Like that. I'm damn. You put me back. Like shit.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, that's how I would feel about it too. Like, oh, you think, yeah, well, yeah, that person made million, or that's a multi-million-dollar project that you just compare me to. So thank you. Yeah,
Yeah, like I said,
that
I'm,
would be
I'm
my
just
way of
happy
looking
more
at
than
it.
two of my friends are listening to it. In the end of the day,
Yeah.
that's all I'm fucking happy with. Like I don't have any expectations other than that. I put it. It's not like I said, oh, I gotta fucking sell this much. I gotta do this and that. I mean, obviously, I want to be um desirable and profitable for Simon. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's something I want to be. For him, but that's not really on my end of it. You know what I mean? I don't really care about making the money for it, whatever it is. That's not. I'm not. I'm doing it strictly for pureness of getting whatever's inside of this stuff I got in me. Like, get it out. That's what it is, and that's all I care about. At the end of the day.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. Yeah, well, yeah, so I think we can go ahead and wrap it up here. I've really enjoyed this conversation with you tonight, man. I appreciate you so much for the music that you make, for coming on here and talking to me, and for going into so much personal detail. Because as I said, when it is connected, when the music is connected to your life, and when you do, go public with that, it's really cool that you could come on here and sort of connect the dots for us and let us, know like, sort of the whole feel of the thing, how it all came together. So, and also thanks to everybody in chat. We've got a lot of awesome people here with us tonight. I'm sure you've noticed, like, there's some big dark ambient artists hanging out in the chat
I'm trying
tonight.
to get the
So
chat thing. I told you that's the last fucking thing I have. Was like great album. That was it. I've got nothing else after that. I'll probably have to check out. I'm an idiot with this shit. I had to have my wife set up. Listen. I told you how
well,
paranoid I am. I don't even have my fucking my music computer is not connected to online. I will not put it online because I don't want any fucking viruses. None of that shit. So I had to use my wife's computer, and she fucking set me up. And like you have to walk me through it with the Skype and all that. So I'll have to look it up after, what people are asking and whatnot. But no,
Yeah,
I appreciate you here bringing me on and shit like that, and hearing everything. It's it's when you have an album, you put an album out, you have to write a narrative to it, usually, and Simon writes likes to write a lot of the narratives. He's a very good writer, you know what I mean. But me personally, I write my own narratives all the time.
nice.
And I'll be honest with you, the last album, The Dormancy, I couldn't write the narrative on my own. I had to ask Pear for my help, and Pear helped me write that. And Simon filled in, and I filled in a little bit, but Pear helped me the most with that because it was like, listen, my last album, The Wanderer's Dream, was like I already kind of let people know that there was some mental illness here. I don't need to fucking say it again.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like it doesn't need to be said again here. Let's just do. So I had to, he kind of helped me put that all together. Where it was like, listen, this is sort of saying it, but not saying it, and he helped me out with that, and whatever. But you know, I'm an open book when this comes to this shit. I'm not here to bullshit nobody or put on a show or put an act on or nothing like that. I'm just telling you, what I feel about my music and how it is, and and where it's been coming from. And believe me, it's interesting to me to find out, like, hey, that fucking voice that you were fucking talking about shit from, that shit was something that was coming from somewhere. You needed medicine for that.
yeah.
It was like, yeah. So that was interesting to me. So this is, I'm only a year and a half into being diagnosed. So it's like, it's a whole new fucking thing for me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I'm
I'm
sure
sure.
10 years from now, I'll feel differently. But right now it's like, I'm interested in figuring myself out, you know what I mean? And how it connects to everything. So, whatever,
Yeah. Yeah, definitely, man. Well, yeah, so that's awesome. Again, yeah, thanks so much. And maybe sometime down the road we'll have another conversation and see where things have progressed by then.
Yeah.
But yeah, for now, thank you, and thanks to everybody here in chat for hanging out with us. Thanks to everybody that's going to watch this in the future. So you guys all have a wonderful night, wonderful weekend, wonderful holiday season. Peace, namaste.
All right. Take care, Michael. Take care, everybody. I'm sorry if I didn't get to any of the questions in the chat. I can't fucking see the chat because apparently I'm an idiot with this fucking shit. So I have no idea. I'll have to look at it after. You know what I mean? You said if you got a question, send me something on the GBD Facebook page or whatever like that. If I didn't get to it, I'm sorry I didn't know. So all right, take care.
Cool, awesome. Yeah, see you later.
All right, later, bro.